Okay. Welcome to Men's Couch again,
Hi.
Dr. Kate, and I'm excited to have you on. I'm going to answer some questions about the psychodynamic approach to therapy and talk about therapy. I think there's so many myths about therapy in general, but also going into the psychodynamic and humanistic approach. A lot of people have questions, and a lot of people can sometimes feel like intimidated by it a little bit. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for bringing me back. And I'm excited to talk about psychodynamic. I come from the humanistic camp. That is where I'm more rooted. And we were talking earlier a bit about this, but I was raised by the psychodynamic folks in the field of psychology. And so much of my master's and doctorate were all under or studying under people who specialized in psychodynamics. So I can talk about it, the ins and outs of it, because I
That's
think
really cool.
it brings so much depth to therapy in a way that I think is intimidating to your point, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're going to do some work, right? With a
Yeah.
into your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, yeah, and just, like, thinking of that, like, doing my own therapy, currently, I am doing therapy with someone that takes, like, a more existential approach and psychodynamic approach than what I'm used to. I was with my former therapist for, I think, 4 or 5 years, and she was awesome, like, God bless her, she was awesome, but, I felt like I wanted to move forward and also go do more deeper work. My therapist is like, "You're ready to do some deeper work." And I was like, "Yeah." But I didn't really know like what like it's because he said in his profile on Psychology Today, it says like existential approach. Like, oh, this is really cool. I wonder what this guy is. But yeah, I like his approach, and I feel like I have gotten to know myself better over the past 3 months or whatever. And I think it's really good. And I think it's just interesting how I think before we talked about like how he's like an archaeologist trying to go through who you are.
Hmm.
And for me, like for years, I've doing therapy in a different way. Not that it was surface level before, but it was more like current things like coping skills and CBT, stuff like that. And I feel like that's doesn't really like go deeper.
Absolutely. So, you know, when we think about finding a therapist, Psychology Today is where we start out, or word of mouth. Like somebody goes to a good private practice or clinic, whatever it is, and then you get feedback that way, right? But if you're looking for a therapist and you're like, I want to do this deeper work where it's going to tackle themes in your life and not current symptoms. And themes can be current symptoms, but what we're looking for is this idea, when we think about existentialism focuses general around the four givens of life, which is you are going to have freedom and responsibility. So you have the freedom to do whatever you want, but you have the responsibility of living with it.
Hmm.
You will be isolated in your life and you have to come to terms with what it means to be lonely and having good, I don't want to say good, healthy coping skills around that loneliness. Because think about how much we talked about, especially in the substance abuse episode,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that connection and that relationship. When people experience isolation or loneliness, we can do a lot of stuff to avoid that feeling, right?
Yeah, there's a
And
connect between our loneliness and, like, what we do to kind of, like, soothe it.
absolutely. It's coming to terms with the fact that you are alone up here and no one could possibly know all of your thoughts, right? Or you to the extent that you know you, right? So coming to terms with that isolation and accepting it and not fearing it. It's the same as death, right? So that's another one of the givens. This idea that you will die and you have to come to terms with one, that reality and not be afraid of it. Right. So when you get into some of the anxieties, you can see how death anxiety plays a role.
Yeah,
Like
that's
if you have a fear of heights, it's likely more a fear of falling, right? A fear of
yeah,
dying.
lack
It's
of control.
Mhm. And then the last part of existentialism is meaninglessness. That you have to kind of come to terms with the fact that meaning and not having any meaning is a part of life. There are things that just happen and they have no, it just is, right?
Yeah,
And so it's accepting like it's a it's a whole bunch about accepting what's in front of you as like, "Hey, this is just what it is," right?
Yeah.
Now, what are you gonna do with that information?
Yeah, how are you gonna hold things that you can't control, and how are you gonna, hold things that occur in a sociological way that you just can't control? How are you going what is the percentage that you can control as an individual, like, in the society? And, his approach, he, like, brings, like, everything in, and I'm like sometimes I'm like, "What are we talking about in a session?" It's he talks about, like, our like, how 'cause I don't know if he told me that if he taught a sociology class or whatever, 'cause that also ties into psychology, but he was talking about just bringing in where you live and how that affects you, but also just how that it's just he was tying everything in, and I'm like, "What are like, how are we connecting all these dots?"
Mhm,
But it made sense because things don't exist in a vacuum. Like a lot of things, like things are connected, and
mhm.
I think that's what part of the psychodynamic approach tries to open clients' eyes to is like things are a lot more connected than they seem.
Absolutely. And so these camps, traditionally, we would put psychodynamic and humanistic in different realms, right? And
Mm,
we would even say existential and humanistic tend to go together. And that is because of Yalom and Viktor Frankl. And we'll get into those names in a little bit because they're important, right? But in the psychodynamic realm, and so we're going to hold space for these two different theories, right? So in the psychodynamic realm, it is and you highlighted this analogy earlier. It is an archaeologist going back into your life and like lightly dusting things off with you to discover kind of the how we got here by going into the past and figuring
yeah,
out, hey, how were your parents to you? This is where people like Bowlby come into play and Ames were. Do
I
you?
love attachment theory.
I love it too, right?
I want to like not to segue, but I want to I don't know if, like I don't know about specialized, but I really want to, like, get into attachment theory, especially when it comes to friendship and attachment. I feel like Dr. Mercer Franco has done, like, amazing work on attachment and friendship and just, like, going through, like, the list. I know, like, I think now, like, in past few years, I think people, like, on TikTok or social media have used it in a way of, like, "I'm this, I'm anxious, I'm avoidant," like, this but we can do another podcast on that, but
Love to come back and we can talk about attachment theory. I Ainsworth is her research, and I don't know if you would have ever seen this in any of your classes, but she is who developed most of that like anxious attachment or avoidant the secure attachment styles, right? And what she would do is have a mom and a child be in a room together and then the mom abruptly get up and walk out of the room and
Yeah.
watch how the child reacted to it, right? And the videos, much like all old school research psychology videos, are like the wildest thing that you've seen. You're like, I can't believe this lady didn't even look back. The kid's like, no, mom. And she's just like out the door, right? And the
Yeah,
kid's
some of
just
those
like,
videos are it's a little I was like, "What are we doing back in the day?"
yeah, yeah, they were having some fun with some folks. You could see
Yeah.
why research got a lot more serious and they were like, hey,
What are we doing?
let's not damage people. But so psychodynamic like attachment theory falls into that. Both Freud and Carl Jung fall into the psychodynamic realm. They
Carl Jung is
split off.
cool, I like Carl Jung.
Yeah. So they split off from each other because of sorry, my dog's going. I'm going to pause for a second.
No, you're good.
Okay, so she might be good now. I can't believe the mailman came. You know what I mean? To our house in just the middle of the day to can't believe he did that to her. But so you have both Freud and Jung that fall under psychodynamic. You have object relations. You have the idea, and this is more under object
Sorry,
relation.
I hear your dog.
I know she's just going to keep barking. It's the guest experience or the special guest
The
tarot.
special guest?
Entire yes, and for anybody who wonders, she is a German Shepherd, so she sounds even more
Okay.
fierce than what she is. She's
Yeah.
probably scaring herself down there barking. But there's a lot that falls under the umbrella of psychodynamic, but it's all about the childhood. It's all about, hey, what were your caregivers like? How were those early childhood developmental years, right? How were you treated during that? When you smiled as a baby, did someone smile back at you? Do you remember me in class being like, "Hey, my number one rule," were you in class that night when I was like, "Okay, if you leave and you learn nothing is if a baby smiles at you, you have to smile back." That's the
And I don't think I was in that class.
okay.
But I smile a lot. I used to be, like, insecure about my smile, but I don't care anymore.
Oh my gosh, no, I think we all should just not in like a creepy way, but I do think that we should smile more.
Yeah, I just, like, naturally smile, and I don't know, I think because, like, I don't know, I feel like body language sometimes in America is more, like, sometimes reserved, and that we just need to, like, allow things to just be.
With it.
Yeah.
It's your only life, right?
Yeah. I think, like, what's interesting in my sessions is that, sometimes he's like how is a different approach than my former therapist is that he's, like, really interested in getting to know me, but in a way of, like, just it's kind of like building a skeleton of who I am, and, we talked about, like, defense mechanisms and how because sometimes, like, he'll pick up on something, like, how sometimes, like, I always wanna be like the helper and we go tie into like, okay, well, where does this connect back to, like you said, childhood and like other areas of my life? And I just think it's really cool. It's like really what I say psychodynamic is just the therapist getting to know you. I feel like getting to know who you are and not just trying to say, okay, so for your homework, how did you do in the anxiety reduction? Is more of getting to know you and why you have anxiety, why you have these things. So it's just like it's very different, and some like I think there's more. I like psychodynamic dynamic too because there's more freedom. I feel like you have more freedom to explore, like, your client and explore things that are related to them, and think sometimes that other things like DBT or CBT, like, they're good and evidence-based, but sometimes I feel like they can be a bit narrow or rigid. I don't know if that those are the right words, but they can be a bit, like, focusing on just one thing, and sometimes you could, like, focus on one thing so much, and then you're just like, "Okay, what's is that all?"
There's more to this story, right?
Yeah.
So I have an analogy for this, and I think that this will hopefully make sense, right? When you go into therapy, if you are dealing with a particular issue, like, hey, I need to get my drinking under control because I noticed that I'm binge drinking, right? We can go about it in a very behavioral focused way where we're like, we're going to reduce, then that's harm reduction, right? So we're going to reduce this you're drinking each week by 1 beer, right? Down to where you're not drinking at all, right? And we're gonna walk you out of this, and we're gonna talk about triggers and things to avoid and what to do if you have a craving, right?
Yeah.
But if you are like, "Okay, I can remove alcohol from my life, but I still feel like I have so much more going on,
Yeah.
and I'm not happy in these realms, and I've never" like, is there an essence to life that I think I'm, like, missing out on? Some of these deeper therapies that examine your whole life, call it do you know how Freud referred to the drives as, like, we're an
Oh
iceberg?
my
The
goodness,
top
yeah.
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 Imagine we're going on a little exploration out into where icebergs are, right? And we see the top of it. These deeper therapies are diving into that water and going as far down as we can to go, "Hey, what do you keep here? What is here?"
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what's here? Are you impacted by what's here, right? And that could be grief, that could be anger, it could be, I just never I never felt like my parents prioritized me. That might not be a true statement, but it's like, why is that in your cave?
Yeah.
Let's dig into that.
I I think it's cool that it also helps the client learn more about themselves, but in a compassionate way. And I feel like it kind of reduces shame because we feel shame about like our defaults and our impulses
Mhm.
that we're not mindful to them and why they happen and where they come from. So it helps but it's also, like, I will say, those for the people that are, like, really interested in this, it's intimidating because you can't really perform in this type of therapy because you're going so deep. Like, you can't I think for people that, like especially, like, men that feel like we have to, like, achieve something for therapy or do the work is literally sometimes like sitting and interpreting something about yourself.
Mhm.
That doesn't feel like work, doesn't feel like it, but it is the deeper work, and it's not necessarily like the homework style, the behavioral style, but change happens. It still happens, and I think what I will say is like trust the process, trust that this approach, even though it's very like intimidating at first, is very like different. Trust that that it like change does happen. I think this we also I noticed in my sessions we talk about therapy, like the topic itself,
Mhm.
and I feel like, well, I know I thought I like, yeah, like, I don't need to know about therapy, but it's, like, really important because it helps you see it in an objective way to see, like, what truly is therapy, like, what is happening, like, behind the scenes when you are talking with your therapist.
So, the therapeutic process, I think, is important to talk about. And you are going to be in a kind of special place too, because you are aware of what the therapeutic process is, right? Because you're studying it and you have an interest in it. And this is just me as a clinician. I love being able to remind people how strong they've been for a period of time, right? And sometimes it's in those moments where you can feel people like, man, life has gotcha a little bit, right? And you can see them handle a situation differently, right? Like they pulled from more coping skills or they didn't go back into maybe a habit that they were involved in. So, for instance, if we are talking about somebody who grew up being bullied, right, and told just horrible things about themselves, and we know that exists, we live in this world, right? And then they come to therapy for a while. CBT might and say they're coming to therapy because they don't fit in at work or they feel like they don't fit in, right? They don't get along with the other guys at work, okay? This might be one of those things where we could work on communication skills, right?
Yeah, because those
Absolutely.
are important.
Let me teach you how to be a friend. Let's start there, right? But if what we're actually at is we can't trust people because I think they're not going to like me because I've been bullied before,
Yeah.
okay, well, then we're gonna have to go back in and sit with that person and go, "Hey, that was not only a tough experience," so validation comes in, right? And empathy comes in, but it's also going, "Hey, can we get you to a place where trust can grow here," right?
Mhm.
Where you could actually not only use the communication skills of how to build friendships, but also build an actual connection. Because 'Cause we've all been, like, friendly with people, but not actually connected to them.
Yeah, I think that that deals with deeper things like like, okay, I'm afraid if people like get to know the real me, they won't really like the real me. So there's like those trust barriers that build up over time. And what psychodynamic does is that we kind of explore those barriers of what is between me and other people in regard to trust. So I think things like communication skills are like very important. I also feel like a lot of feel like just in general, we kinda Americans don't always, like, value that in regard to friendship, but the deeper work is the things that are, like, our fears of people getting to know us and our fears, like, okay, of being too much or a burden to people,
Mhm.
because that's gonna, like, prevent you from developing those relationships.
So that would be if we're thinking about psychodynamic, right? Specifically, it might be caregiver and feeling like, hey, in your childhood, did you ever feel like a burden at and maybe that's not the direct question that is asked. It might be you telling a story about helping your dad with something and you kicking over a can of paint and him snapping out about it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, in that story though, I might reflect back the emotion of, or maybe the feelings of, oh man, I would have felt like I was a big mess up there, right? Or that I
Yeah.
had made something worse. And so as a clinician, you're validating the emotion, the unspoken emotion that's there of like, man, how did that feel to live in that moment? Right. But in the deeper, what are we processing here? Hey, do you hold on to some of these ideas of you being a burden or too much because of something that was taught to you a very long time ago?
Yeah, and what's funny is that you mentioned, like, how do you feel in that moment? I'm a sensitive person, Like, I've always been a sensitive person, but in therapy, I noticed that, like, when there's space made for, like, how I feel, I was like, "Well, I don't know really what to, like, do with this space." Because 'Cause he'll ask, like, "K well, how do you feel about this? Because you think so intellectually about this, but how do you feel?" And there's a difference, and I
Mhm,
think what, like, psychodynamic can do is, like, it allows clients to give them space that they're not used to having. They're not used to having, like, they're used to working on things and trying to fix your thoughts or whatever, but there's a difference between that and also making space for how do you feel about this chronic issue that you have or this, thing that you went through. This, like, I feel like there's a huge difference.
mhm.
Yeah.
What's cool about that, right? So when you are asked the question, "Hey, how did that make you feel?" Right? And you go, "I I have no emotion to put in there. What?
It's like,
I'm
"Well,
telling you
I
what."
think
Right?
I think."
Listen to my story, right? Just stop with this feeling nonsense. But
Yeah.
what we're looking for there is this idea like, did you connect? And maybe I'll describe it like, do you remember that you were a human in that moment? And like, what emotions came up for you? Did nothing come up? We'll use the example of dad yells at you because you kick something over in the garage. That, the old meme where it's like, we've all been yelled at for holding the flashlight wrong, right?
Yeah.
In that moment, right? If you were like, "I didn't feel anything," and it's like, "Okay, why didn't you feel anything?" Because me as a human could look at that. Now, I am sliding more into the humanistic realm here, okay? But this is where they're complementary of each other, right? Because the humanistic is gonna go, "Hey, in this moment, though, you still feel nothing. That's interesting. I
Yeah.
would have felt maybe some shame or like dad didn't love me.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
not
like
even that deep. Maybe I thought he was a jerk for that, right? And I'm
yeah.
angry at him for that.
I feel like humanistic kind of mirrors, like, to the client, like, who they truly are and mirrors, like, what is normal and what can't, like, that it's that what you're experiencing is just normal
Mhm.
for you to have, and you shouldn't suppress it. So,
Like, absolutely. So there is no reason in that moment. Now, obviously, we're jumping back in time if we're talking about dad yelling at us for holding a flashlight when we were 8 or something, right? Humanistic's gonna look at that and go, "That's really interesting," right? That in that moment, you didn't feel anything, right? But if we were back in that moment, what do you think you would feel? Would you feel anger?
yeah.
And you process like that to kind of go, "I'm not gonna tell you how to feel, but I want you to connect something there. What did you really feel
Give you
in
I
that?"
want to give you space to actually, like, feel it or give you
Mhm.
space to say, like, "Hey, this is okay."
I give you permission as a human to be a
Permi
human in that
I
moment.
gi
Yeah. Mhm.
I give you permission to be a human.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, it is really powerful to tell somebody, "Hey, in this space, I don't care how you show up. You show up as your authentic self." You can even say, like, off the wall statements, like, "You know what? I really hate my mom. I know
Yeah.
that you." That's not listen, that's not the final project, right? That is the draft
Yeah.
before the draft, right? Look, why do we feel that? And I think therapy overall allows those spaces to exist where you can just
Yeah.
exist as a human and take the load off. Talk about
Yeah.
what your experience is.
I think, like, if you're an overthinker, if you're very, like, 'cause again, like, I'm very sensitive, I'm very sensitive, but I'm also, like, very tend to be, like, very, in my head, thinking a lot. So, it can be quite intimidating and quite surprising when your therapist is like, sometimes, like, you can use thinking as a default to avoid experiencing whatever it is you need to experience in the moment, and it kinda sometimes, like, takes you out of the moment instead of, like, you being mindful in the moment. So, that can because when you're develop that pattern of just going through life and just digesting things through thinking them through, you're missing, like, an important piece of being a human, of saying, like, I've had sessions where it's like, "Okay, you can get angry," and it's like, it feels weird because I'm not like, if I like, it's like he's giving me permission, but I'm also, like, unfiltered, and I was like, I don't know how to be unfiltered. And now, now I'm very so much more, like, comfortable in my unfiltered, authentic self, like, and on a day to day. 'cause before, like, in my with my old therapist, I was afraid of, like, okay, if I, like, show her, like, parts of myself, different, conflicting emotions, then I feel like I'm being judged, even though that's therapists don't do that. But it's just when you're given permission, I feel like when you're given permission, you learn how to be a human. I feel like a lot of people, I think men in particular to a degree, like, we don't know how to just be a human and just not perform, not be on. So, psychodynamic, I feel like it can really put you in a put you in your place, not in a bad way, but, like, put you in your place of in perspective, like, of what being a human really is,
Mhm.
and exploring the complexity and messiness behind that.
Absolutely, and the origins of it, right? Meaning like, "Hey, this is who you are as a person, who you've developed to be, has history to it. You didn't" and I know I borrow this line from her all the time, but when Kamala Harris said, "I didn't just fall out of a coconut tree," right? Like, it's such a real thing. We are everything we've ever existed. We're a nervous system that was created in this world. Like, it's
Nervous
so
system's interesting.
humans, top tier, really. I love them. I recognize I have problems there, but like humans, top tier. But something you said is really important, okay? And it's about that idea of being able, I said like kind of come in and take a load off and just be a human for a second. Like, have you ever seen those pictures where it's like you unzip and it's like, oh, your real form
Have
comes out?
I haven't, but this sounds
So no, but
is it
that's
like a meme?
genuinely it is. It's
Okay.
like, I think that he unzips to, like, an alien, but we're gonna unzip to, like, our true form, right?
The arteries and veins.
So, therapy, time and time again, research for probably the last, I'm gonna say 60 years, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure close to 60 years, and it started with Rogers, right? So, Carl Rogers, that's the, person-centered humanistic camp, okay? He found time and well, not him specifically, but he originally found that the most important catalyst for change in therapy is the therapeutic relationship. The relationship that you have with your therapist.
No, and
And that's been
it's like
proven
that's
many times over, yeah.
it's like this therapist, like, we focus on our relationship over because I'm more that's another thing too that's different is, with the last therapist, as what I mentioned before, I was like, "I'm gonna bring a problem in, focus on the problem, do this, boom, 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 boom." But now it's just like we're focused more on our relationship, and I'll get to that more, but I'm interested in what you have to say about that.
Well, the therapeutic relationship offers that space to become more authentic, right? So, this is absolutely true in psychodynamic work that you need to feel connected to your clinician, right?
Yeah,
you need to feel like you're in a safe container. They have more of what's considered a blank slate type of interaction that comes from like the psychoanalytic realm where they're not as present in in the therapeutic space as some of your humanistic people will, okay? Humanistic people come from the idea that you meet folks with positive regard. So no matter how you show up in my office, on my wherever, right? I accept you at the very base that you are a human and you are deserving of like this connection at the moment, right?
yeah,
Because you're not doing anything unsafe. You're not, those kind of things, right? We're not talking about have endless boundaries. We are talking about like
yeah.
genuine connection, right? And what's cool about that level of connecting with somebody is truly, I don't think people really experience all the time. And I want them to, right? But that
I
ability to be
know.
authentic
I know.
spaces, yeah.
It's like as from what and just even talking about that, like, with, like, my friends and in this space with Men's Couch, and I'm because now that I've built it over a number of years, you just kind of assume that everybody has it
Mhm.
because you just experience it so much. And in our last show, we talked about, like, I think what Saturday is for the boys or something. I'm like, "What is this?" Like, I don't know what this is. And because in my friend group, like, we don't like, I don't know if it's like I just like I'm surrounded by people of like high emotional intelligence, but like we talk a lot about like I feel like we're kind of all secretly therapists therapizing each other. And they're not psych majors. We just really care about each other. And what like I try to do with the podcast is kind of promote that
Mhm.
But not that, like, okay, not that that's, like, the only form of connection that people need to have, but it can be. This is a space where you can be your authentic self. You don't have to exist, wearing, like, 400 different roles and masks. You can, but it's uncomfortable. It's obviously uncomfortable to stop doing that, but, like, I don't know. I don't, and, like, when I talk to some people that I don't know really well, they, like, look at, like, my friend group, and they're like, "Oh, wow, you guys really, like, talk to each other." And I'm like, "Is this not, like, not a thing?" But I don't know, cause, like, I only know you only know what you know. You
Mhm.
only know what
So, a couple thoughts in that.
like,
One,
I don't know, like, okay, so I don't know if you in class, so like, me and Angie, we brought in our friends, like, I don't know if you notice, like, how, like, really we're just kind of like a family. I don't know how much you've seen that, or, like, I need, like, an outside perspective on on that, cause how, like, people talk about it, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
so there's probably a couple things in that, right?
okay.
And I think that there's some cultural stuff that I would assume probably plays into this, right?
Yeah.
And so, on a very base level, when you are taught that there's like a set standard that you have to follow as a human, right?
Mm,
Where it's like, this is how you interact, this is how you have relationships, this is how you go
yeah.
to school, this is what you wear, right? And the more that you align yourself with, like, I'm doing everything that I need to do, right? And you kind of uniform yourself, you can pull away from who you are as a person, right?
It's almost a little bit like survival,
Yeah,
just
right.
surviving.
Surviving, yeah, right? So, if we think about, do you know at Burgatory, and I don't know their menu well enough, but you know how you have to, like, fill out what you want and you just okay, so you
For that reason, because 'cause I'm very picky, so I'm like, "Okay, I can just choose what I want on it."
so life should kind of be like that, right? And I'm gonna pick on white culture just for a hot second, right?
Okay.
So, when you are brought up in, like, middle class white culture, there's, like, certain cultural influences that come into play, and I'm gonna talk about clothing for a hot second. You can tell that there is, like, a uniform outfit that happens on college campuses, and it is the, like, yoga pants, and I'm gonna talk it's the Jedi outfit, right? So it's, like, the yoga pants, the UGG boots, and, like, the vest. Do you know what I'm talking about? And
Yeah.
I don't know whether it still exists now, but I'm gonna say it was the outfit of choice for about 5 years.
I think, like, oh, there's a cat in my neighbor's window, but, I think the know what I don't like is that, like, for men, it's just, like, sweatpants in a sweatshirt. That's just not my style. I could never, like, it's not my style unless if you see me go out the house like that, then you need to check in on me, because it's not like I always like to, because 'cause I'm a big fashion person, and I like fashion, so I think that it also, like, allows, like, authenticity, and allows me to
That
express myself. So that's kind of really connecting to connected to that. It's really, like, helps me do that, so
that's a perfect example, right? So there are things that we can kind of become accustomed to doing, relating to. So if that is everybody's wearing this outfit, I can either wear that outfit too, or I can wear whatever I want, right? And it really is that simple, but we are pushed to align, right? When's the last time you went out? And this is probably going to be very relatable to some folks, right? Where it's like, hey, what are you wearing to baby shower we're going to? So I know what to wear. And it's like, you don't have to ask that question. You could just wear whatever you think
yeah,
you want to. What does your body want to wear to this baby shower? And just
yeah,
rock and roll, because it's made up rules to a certain extent. And I think the same when it comes to relating with people. There is no rule that you cannot be friends with humans that you meet out and about, that you can just talk to humans out and about.
yeah,
There's no rules against this, but we've kind of made rules of like, oh,
yeah,
I can't be friends with the guy at the corner store. Yes, you can.
yeah.
Like, it's okay to I probably say this all the time, right? I know I say this all the time. It's okay to connect. Like, it's okay to be friendly. We're the same thing. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what John Tucci does for
Mhm.
just on campus, remind people that it's okay to be friendly. I think
Mhm.
people are, like, put off by it a lot because they're not used to that,
Mhm.
and he talks a lot about, like, okay, you know, there was a time where, like, everybody just said hi to each other, and, like, I think people are a bit, I don't know if it's, like, the social climate, or people are just so, like, afraid of people being so different from them, but I like, at least, like, in what I've experienced in my community and friend group is that, like, you see us, we're all very different from each other. And and looking at that through in terms of, like, authenticity is that I feel like people don't necessarily experience that. I mean, I don't know, but I think that probably plays into the being able to open up to each other and being able to, like, feel supported. But yeah, I think it's important being able to be authentic, being able to, because I feel like that's also part of psychodynamic theory is, really unlocking the client's true authentic self and kind of chipping away. It's like making like a statue, chipping away at everything for to find like who the client really is. But it's just my therapist is funny because he's like, it's weird because it's not weird, but we'll have sessions where it's like, well, yeah, I noticed like in our sessions that you tend to like, go into, like, avoidance in certain ways, like, I feel like I have a relationship with him, like, not a marriage, but a relationship with him, and he's, like, bringing stuff up, but in a way, it's, like it helps me to obviously to become aware and improve, but it's different than just, like, focusing on, like, negative thoughts and trying to cognitively reframe them. That's different than someone sitting across from you and saying, "I notice, like, you tend to go into this area when something bad happens." It's different.
It's a type of vulnerability that you can't hide from the person that's sitting across from
You
you
can't.
because they're asking you, like, "Hey, I don't care if you have to close your eyes, right? I would like you to be present with me." And you can
Mhm.
drop all I don't care that how much money you have in your bank account. I don't care what clothes you're wearing. I don't care if you I mean, I care if you ate that day, right? Obviously. But like I did you
We
drink?
want you to eat.
Like you gotta drink and eat your water. Or yeah, you gotta drink your water and eat your food, there we go. But you can just show up and you don't have to put on any of the airs. I just like, let's process through whatever you're working on as a human, right? So, I have another analogy that I think might nail these 2 theories home a little bit, right? So, when you think of psychodynamic and humanistic and CBT, okay, we're gonna kinda merge all of these together. Imagine a town that keeps flooding. And lucky for us, we live in Western PA. So we're going to talk about Johnstown for a hot second. Okay. So if we were going to do a breakdown of therapy of Johnstown, PA and their floods, okay. So we have a town that keeps flooding. Psychodynamic therapy therapists would come in and go, okay, what is happening upstream? What has happened in the past that has caused this flooding? Let's look back.
Yeah, like, how did
Was
we
it
get
for
here?
your yeah, how'd we get here? Why what keeps is it the rain? Is it the erosion?
Yeah,
Is it did you build a dam and then not repair it for many, many years? Okay, yeah, that's actually what happened, right? But, what happened here? Humanistic folks would come in and go, what are they people experiencing right now? Do they have what they need? So that hierarchy of needs come in, right? Do
yeah,
they have what
massive.
they need to like survive this, right? And then the CBT folks might come in and go, okay, we have somebody investigating the past, right? We have someone investigating the present and going, hey, can you grow as a person here in
Yeah,
all of this? What do we need to remove? What do we need to like mingle with? And then CBT comes in and goes, okay, you're kind of sad and defeated about this because you're in a flood, right? What are some ways that we can think differently about the situation we're in?
yeah, yeah, and that
We
I
co-
think
yeah.
I think I think that's good I think it's beneficial. I think there's room for that. I just think, at least, like, just for me personally, I think I got to a point where number 1, I was kind of, like, surprised by the fact that I was kind of ready for more inner deeper stuff. Like, I'm a deep person, but also, like, having that mirrored back to me is kind of like it's just it helped me stretch outside my comfort zone to have that mirrored back, to have someone just have a conversation with me and then just kind of I also noticed that like I don't know if this is just common with psychodynamic, but he writes like a lot of things down. And I don't remember like my old therapist doing that. So he like writes things down, but I think it just is more of like getting to know certain traits and just getting to know the client. And I'm like, well, I in a session I get distracted when he writes things down. And he's like, well, why do you get distracted? and he asked why a lot. I never had someone that asked me why, but it's room to explore. Explore, okay, let's explore this. It might not seem super significant to you, but you're not really conscious of the significance.
Mhm.
Whether it's like a behavior or like something that like a defense mechanism. It's funny when we talk about defense mechanisms because I don't know, it's just like it's really just you really know yourself with that, but yeah.
There are times where you see yourself doing I'm sure even outside of therapy, you'll catch yourself sliding into, like, a mode of thinking, and you're like, "Ah, caught me again."
Yeah.
So, in all of this, there is another style. It's a technique more than anything else that I think really fits into not only psychodynamic work, especially shorter psychodynamic, because if we would jump back in the day and do Freudian style psychoanalytic, it would be 2 to 3 times a week
Goodness.
type of therapy, right? And not only can people not afford that, right? Also, I don't know how many therapists could be like, yes, 3 hours a week, just you and I
That's
processing something."
I think people would just get drained after a while. Like
For sure.
one session of psychodynamic is draining enough, but like 3 days a week is insane.
Uh, there are some people that I'm like, I bet a weekend retreat where we do nothing but just process your life for 3 days straight it would be like a good chiropractor appointment that gets you all
Yeah,
but
yeah,
so, psychoanalytic it's kind of out of reach for, like, the world that we live in right in the moment, except in, like, special cases, right?
yeah,
But there is it's in I'm gonna say the new wave, but it came about in the last couple well, not the last couple of years, but in the last probably 40 years or so, right? And it's called narrative work. Have you ever heard about that?
I think I heard a little bit about that. Yeah,
So, what narrative does is it is asking someone to tell stories about their lives, right? And it can incorporate journaling, it can incorporate like particular topics, but you're going back in your life and you're selecting stories out of your like lived experience. And then you and the therapist process through the story
mhm,
and you write it or you rewrite the story, right? As a co-author. So it's not something that happened to you, but it is something that you experienced and you identified all the emotions in it, right? It's kind
yeah,
of something familiar for what we were talking about earlier, right? It is humanistic. So it's very like show up how you are authentically. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty of this, right? But then it also allows you to go back in and talk about the themes that pop up in, hey, you're talking a lot about your mom and your experiences with mom, right? You're pulling out, hey, there was a problem in that situation. You weren't the problem, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
allowing people to like piece themselves apart from these identities that they built over time that are just like not authentic. You were told you were a bad kid. You're not a bad kid type of thing.
yeah. I think I've heard I definitely know it's new. I think I've listened to a few podcasts on that, but now that you mentioned it, brought it back up, I think I'm gonna like listen in on it more. 'Cause I think it's interesting how we're not integrating our experiences. We experience things, but we're not necessarily, like, integrating them and not processing them and just making something new out of it, like, I think it's also useful when it comes to trauma work, when you're, integrating an experience and then, you have because it can happen, like, years ago, and you're still kind of disconnected from that experience. And you need to connect to that in order to kind of unravel who you really are, who you really were in that moment, and also who you really are now. So I think that's really important. So, but yeah, it's something I'll look more into.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love narrative. I think it's a cool way of examining or helping someone examine their lives, right? And their stories and get a better hold over things that come up for them.
Hmm.
And you've probably experienced this that people will talk about the same stories multiple times. And I
Yes.
always thought, and I say this in my own life and I say this at work, but there's a reason why something continues to pop up for you, right? Let's get to the bottom. Why are you haunted by the lunchroom at school, right? Like, why
Yeah.
do we think about this? Let's get to the bottom of why that keeps popping up.
Yeah, because it also doesn't like it gives you room to explore that without shame or embarrassment, and we feel embarrassed by that. So I think narrative and a little bit of psychodynamic helps us to unpack that, like truly unpack that, not just like touch on it, but unpack it. But
Mhm.
it's because clients feel safe to do that with their therapist. So if you have that safety in establishment, you feel more inclined to explore things that are embarrassing.
Mhm. So I supervise other clinicians, and one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about is our own humanity and like how we accept ourselves for being humans and the things that we have to deal with in life, right? And coming to terms, kind of like when we were talking about existentialism, right? Being able to look at what's in front of us and accept things that are just givens, right? They're just how it is to be alive, right? And I think the more clinicians, so this is on our end of things, right? So the more clinicians know themselves and accept themselves, and I'm not saying just like, oh no, it's okay that I'm like this, right? No, like genuinely have put in some work to loving themselves as humans, accepting themselves at the size they are, at the what they look like, where they are socially, kind of all of those things, right? The things that we have vulnerabilities on or insecurities on, the more work that they put in on, hey, I'm going to be more resilient to this and I'm going to also just love myself as a human and kind of
Right.
hold that, right?
Right.
I think that that really translates well into therapy relationships because it the more I know myself as a human, the more I'm allowed to allow you to be a human in front of me and not be scared away by what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
which
prison helped me with that. Okay.
what is
So
it?
prison helped me with that, working
Oh,
in prison. Yeah, absolutely. Because you 'cause you're with raw humans all the time,
yeah,
right? And it's like, "No, I'm not saying this is okay, what X, Y, and Z, whatever behavior they're doing, I'm not saying it's okay, but I am saying, like, I get it because I can understand from a human empathy-wise, right? So, like, I can understand
yeah,
what it must be like to exist like this."
yeah, because it allows for messiness. Because I think a lot of us, we're not okay with just being messy,
Uh-huh.
and we sometimes we have a tendency, to see things as A plus B equals C, but sometimes it's like A plus plus E plus F because it just, like, kinda is scattered, and I think
There's
what's like
an orange in there, yeah. I don't know how to do that. What's the math on this? Yeah.
and what, like, psychodynamic does is it allows for that, but it also explores that and normalizes it. It
Mhm,
normalizes, okay, so your life is messy to a degree, and you're also it's not like I think what for men specifically, I think men sometimes can be cautioned to this because we are like, well, I don't want to be seen like as a victim. I don't want to be seen as like incapable of doing anything, but that's not what psychodynamic is. Like the clients like have agency and responsibility, but we're also understanding the context around that and allowing space for the client to just experience what they need to. I think we men sometimes can disconnect from experience and focus too much on solving the issue. This issue needs to be solved right now. I need to like fix this right now. And what my therapist tackled is like, okay, well, okay, but what do you feel? I was like, yeah, but that's not important right now.
I'll
So
later, okay? I need to solve this now.
like, you'll be going back and if you do psychodynamic, you'll probably be going back and forth with your therapist a lot. Not in a bad way, but just like back and forth with you kind of because I feel like in that space, your defense mechanisms are more triggered because you have someone that is being present with you. So if you're not necessarily used to that, or you're in that stage where you're afraid to be more known, you're gonna have more like the defensive mechanism. So sometimes it's a setup. Sometimes it's like a setup for change.
You have I you have me thinking about an analogy I used a while ago to talk about therapy in general, right? And the way that I do therapy, because I sit more in the humanistic camp, which is just like two people sitting on a couch together, right? And just being like, what's up with you? Right? Like, what's been going on? Right?
That can be uncomfortable for a lot of people.
I
Because it's like, sorry,
yeah,
I didn't
no,
mean to cut
no,
you
go
off, sorry.
ahead. No, what were you gonna say?
Because it's like people are like, well, I don't like they people like we okay, so therapy is normalized now. Like
Mhm.
we all go to therapy, but like it's different. Like once you sit down, like truly sit down and allow someone to like really let you like ask what's really going on.
Mhm.
That's uncomfortable for a lot of people.
It's like, I don't wanna know about the weather. What's your relationship like with your sisters? Like, no, deep in, what happened?
Yeah,
Why'd your parents get a divorce, you know? Like, the most intrusive no, it's not the most intrusive questions, but so I refer to it and Yalom, he is the original, the OG person that talks about this, right? But therapy is meant to be, uh, like, I'm a passenger to your life, right? And I come in,
yeah,
and I get in the car with you, and we drive wherever you need to go, right? And on that journey, we talk about the decisions that you make and like, well, okay, but did that decision come from somewhere else, right? Did you make that out of urgency or did you make that out of emotion? Did you put deep thought into it? Kind of all of those things, right? And at the same time, when we go past an exit that we should have gotten off, whether it's like a bad relationship or having too deep of a relationship with substance use or whatever it is, a job, unlike a friend or a family member or somebody in your life that can tell you, "Oh, you shouldn't have done this and that was a bad decision." I'm
yeah,
like, okay, so we got to walk back to the other exit. Okay. Yeah. I got my walking shoes on. Let's go. Right. And
yeah,
I'm not here to judge you for what you do in life. I'm here to look and go, hey, can we clear enough out of your way to help you grow into the person that you want to be and like the best version of yourself that you've identified, not that I think the best version of you, right? Because some of the
yeah,
things, it's much like raising children, right? It's like, no, I don't want you to do X and Z, but I don't get that say in your life, right? Like you have to grow into who you're going to be. So I think therapy's cool in that way. It's like, oh, I'm not going to complain. No, I guess we're walking 6 miles back to that exit, huh? Okay.
yeah. It's like I feel like I talk about like 50 different top subjects in therapy sometimes because and it's not that like they're not it's just like no direction. It's just like when you're given no, I guess, guardrails of where to focus on and when you're not like just doing anxiety reduction or just trying to like focus on like particular thing, you have more like mobility to just talk about, okay, so the current social cultural climate is affecting me. Also, I didn't like what my dad said when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Also, like I have an alcohol addict. Like it's just anything like under the sun. But no, but all these things are intertwined. And I think sometimes like going into therapy, like people can feel like, oh, I'm just like a bottle of mess and a bottle of like just craziness, but really it's therapy or at least psychodynamic therapy allows people to realize that, oh, my problems, like they're not disconnected from everyone else or everything else that's going on.
You're not the only person that is experiencing it might be only your story, right? But, like, you're not the only person that has experienced uncontrolled anger or hating their job or not having a healthy relationship with their mom or not having a healthy relationship with food, whatever, right? To your point about being concerned about going into talking to therapists, right? Um, I so at my practice, we've all had institution experience, whether it was at state hospitals, community agencies. And what that means is that we've worked with the parts of our society that are either they're there because they're getting punished, they're there because they're not safe to themselves or other people, right? Or they're accessing agencies within their community that are like lower funded and not, so we're talking about grassroots type of working with folks, right? And one of the things that I am forever grateful for is that I have worked in what we call like the mental health trenches, right? Like I've been
The
in
trenches.
the trench. Yeah, I've been to the trench. You know what I mean? So like I used to be like, "Ugh, I've been in these streets. Okay. Like I understand what is happening. But I'm forever grateful that I spent time with folks, especially now being in private practice and at the university, right? I spend time with folks that are often forgotten about and not poured into, and or they're like, who cares, right? And that had been or is such a profound impact on my life, right? And the way that I view life. Because I think had I not gone, I was 21 when I started working casework in prisons, right? So like I was a baby. I don't think we
Yeah.
realize how young 21 is until you're like, "Oh, I'm in here with lifers."
Yeah.
Okay? Like,
Yeah.
65, he's been alive and in prison longer than I've been alive, right? Like,
Yeah.
that was a reality. But I say that to say that that ability to go, "Hey, nothing that anybody out on the street," and I'm saying that lives in, like, that would come to private practice now, right? I have heard some of the wildest sentences that you've ever heard stated, just, like, on a random Wednesday at work, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was a rat on the floor and someone bit it. And then you're like, no, that should not have been what? What are we
It's
talking
just
about?
another Wednesday.
I'm like, oh,
Just another
okay,
one.
I'll get to that after lunch. Okay, I got other things to do. But that ability to just recognize that like humans are complicated and our
Yeah.
lives and our relationships and the things that we have access to, right? Like, it makes life very, very complicated, and we're not all the way prepared to deal with this. And sometimes we didn't have the parenting that we needed to deal with this because they weren't prepared to deal with the things that they had to deal with. And then you add poverty on top of that. You add any kind of racial aspect on top of that. And we start to paint a bigger picture of like, oh man, the human existence is complicated. And it's okay if you're not batting 1,000 on your first time through life here because it's
Yeah.
complicated.
How do you witness this with college students and how they expect themselves to be, what was the word? I guess, accomplished? Because I feel like you as a professor, you're just like, "We're just rolling with the punches today. We're just gonna go with whatever." And then, like, a lot of, like, other professors or just people in general, like, are just like, "You're gonna this is how it's gonna be. You're gonna do it this way," and, like and but no, it's like I feel like yeah, I feel like you're very, like, open to just people just coming in and they're just gonna sleep in class, and that's just they're gonna eat or they're gonna be dozing off, but you allow that, like, humanity. Obviously, with boundaries, of course, but yeah.
So I I think it's because it's a mutual relationship. I teach for fun, because I love teaching. Like I love as much as I love being in private practice, man, give me like 3 or 4 general I'll say human growth and development classes that are undergrad. Only in the afternoon though. Don't give me none of these 8 a.m. classes. That's craziness. I can't do it. But I enjoy teaching, and so for me, it's like, "Hey, I am absolutely grateful to have this opportunity to be in front of you, right? And I don't wanna make this any harder than it needs to be. Like, I want this to be an experience where you walk away from here and you feel like you've learned something, right?
Yeah.
And when I say it's a two-way street, I'm never gonna read your homework when you put it in, okay? It's gonna be 2 or 3 weeks until I get to it because I get pulled 1,000 different directions, right? And so I want that leniency. I'm not going to go, "Hey, it was due yesterday and you didn't turn it in, so you get 0 points," because
Yeah.
I'm probably not gonna read it for 3 weeks. That isn't a relationship that I want to set with somebody. So I end up being a lot more flexible because I want that consideration back, right?
I feel like yeah, I feel like what a lot of students crave is professors that are relationship oriented, where they like, they care about like the whole being of the student and not just their performance. Because I feel like given, like, that we live in sort of, like, a performance-driven culture, like, students are, like, looking for professors that are more like, "Okay, so you didn't get, like, sleep this week, like, really what's going on?" So, I think that's, like, awesome, so
So I like the philosophy around being soft on people, but hard on principle, right?
yeah,
And so the principle of it is we are here to do we have agreed that we're going to talk about this subject matter for
Mhm.
15 weeks. And I'm going to show up as much as humanly possible. I do have to drive through 2 tunnels, okay? That
I was getting ready to say,
little
like,
bit of the
that's
bane of
and you're
my
coming, like, after I imagine you're coming after rush hour or during
yeah.
rush hour?
And there's only
Goodness.
but a certain amount of time that I can sit in my car in traffic outside of the Allegheny County Jail, okay? You want in that section where I'm like, "There I've been sitting here. I'm now just gonna see if I see anybody," right? Like,
Like
there's nothing to do. But we've agreed that you signed up for this class and agreed to teach it. I want you to come out of it not going, "Hey, this was the worst experience," or "I didn't learn anything." And I try to be as fun as possible too, because the way that I have handled being in the prison system, in the state hospital, and I mean, my goodness, I worked specifically with sex offenders for multiple years, right? And
yeah,
that has its own set of things. But I love the defense mechanism of humor because I think it's beautiful to laugh together and have some joy.
very, like that's another, like, defense mechanism that was like, pointed out.
'Cause I will crack a joke, and I'll know
Yeah.
when I've said something 1,000 times over. Like, the day in class that I kept on saying Ruby Tuesdays, I couldn't tell you the last time I've been to Ruby Tuesdays, but I'm like, "This is so funny because 'cause I'm gonna have to say Ruby Tuesdays again. I'm so sorry, guys."
I think you're like, you have very, like, unique sayings, like, "Okay, let's rock and roll through this," it's like, it really at least, like, with me, like, Angie and a few other people, like, we, like, appreciate that for, like, a night class. So, it just, like, have this, like, pumped up energy, like, "Let's just rock and roll with the punches," you know? And I think, like, when it comes to, like, the psychodynamic approach, I think also, like, what I noticed is that, like, with my other therapist, I was very serious.
Mhm.
Like, almost too serious about, like, just I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna get some work done. I'm gonna, like, get some anxiety reduction work done, or CBT." And, like, when I with this other person, I'm more of, I'm more of, like, myself in a way. I'm more, like have more humor, have more, like, because there is a time for, like, humor and just joking about, like, things, and I'm more, like, relaxed. I'm not, like, trying to pick a topic, which this probably was a defense mechanism in itself, trying to, like, pick something to, like, just go around the mountain with, but yeah.
So, outside of therapy, I, in the last year, have started a nonprofit with my like team of people that I work with. And it's called the Strawberry Collective. And it is all about what we're actually talking about right now, which is this idea that healing can, in fact, be fun and healing can have joy as a part
Like, it
of it.
doesn't have to be serious.
It doesn't always have to be serious. And I think education's that same way. Like, absolutely, could we have come in and we kept the big lights on, right? And plain PowerPoints and no videos and just me talking like, Hi, guys, this is heroin. This is what does." I could have
This
done
is
that,
heroin.
absolutely. But I want you to walk out of here going like, "Oh, I actually know what alcohol does to my body. Cool."
Yeah,
That's beautiful, right? And at the same time, we can laugh about this, right? And I can
yeah.
bring up like, does any of these drug and alcohol ads work on you guys at all, right? Like,
No, I think there was that one day we were just cracking up, like, in the back. I think we were because you kept saying I think it was like you kept saying marijuana or something, and, like,
yeah.
I've never, like, heard a professor, like, use that, like, in such, like, a short, like, span of time, and also you mentioned that you're from the South Side. It's just, like, you're just, like, being very down to earth, like, helps to, like, students connect.
So that is part of the humanistic thing, right? And I will say, and I think I've actually joked with you before, I am like this all the time. Like my
Yeah,
neighbor, I am as weird in class as I am to my neighbors and my kids, and like, just kind of frolicking about in life, right?
yeah,
But it's because at the end of the day, I am just another human like you are, and you're
yeah,
just another human like I am, right? And I, for whatever reason, just hit the scene 30 some years ago, right? So hit the scene, right? And I have always just wanted to make the world somewhat better. And
yeah.
I feel like the way to do that is by connecting with people. And I've always been a chatty Cathy, like anywhere I go. I am friends with all my neighbors. I know everybody's business. I love it. Like, I'm just a human magnet. And at the same time, that love for humans, I pour into things like, hey, let's go. Can we get together and do collective art healing groups? We're
Yeah,
doing one at the Steel Goat over the summer, right? And like, we are putting together community exercises where it's like, okay, we are all in this together. This is just a big old
yeah,
fishbowl, guys. There's not a lot of difference between us, right?
yeah.
And we should celebrate that, right? And we should love that more. And I think sometimes people just need to be told it's okay. Like, it's okay to love yourself, even if you're flawed. The rest of us are too.
I think that's why, like, my community and friend group is the way it is because we're not like, there's no not that there's no, like, there's, like, just no there's no, like, judgment, there's no, like, barriers in regard to that. We're just kind of just, like we're the complete opposite of each other, but also we're very emotionally present in terms of, like, I swear, like, I feel like it's like I'm friends with a lot of, like, fake therapists that aren't therapists, like, they're like, we just talk, and I think also and, like, it's gotten to the point where, other people, other, staff on campus notice that with, like, me and Angie and, like, how 'cause Angie's a class president and I'm the vice president, so, like, our focus we were talking, like, to John Locke, and, like, our focus has always been, like, community oriented, being, like, community building, and so, like, I didn't really notice, like, the difference whenever it was, like, finals week when they mentioned to us, like, "You guys are, like, really doing something." It's like, "Okay, like, aren't we just normal people? Just I don't know, like, I didn't realize it was that much of big of a thing, but I think it's just I think what Men's Couch and what other things tap into is, like, our humanity. It's like we forget that we're just human, and we forget to appreciate those experiences of being human, and that's how you I think that's how, like, true friendship comes to be, is just appreciating the humanity in someone else and in yourself,
Mhm,
and that's also, like, what's kind of what psychodynamic is, appreciating the humanity in all its messiness and appreciating your therapist's humanity, like, my therapist, it's very like, there of course, there's, like, he doesn't trauma dump, but he is open, and that's very new to me. I'm like, "Okay, I'm not used to, like, 'cause I'm here to receive something, and I'm surprised that we're connecting on a human to human level, but that's part of the therapeutic process."
mhm. Absolutely. Being relatable, right? I'll share. So we're in my office that I work out of a fair amount, and I have it fixed. We'll see. But part of, and I'm pointing right over here. Part of over here, M the English starlings, which are not native to our area, found a way in to, like, a portion of my house, right? And it's very small portion, but they sit and then they get stuck and flutter a whole bunch. So it sounds like every so often, right? And there have been times where someone will be talking to me and I don't know because I have headphones in, right? But
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's my bird." Yeah.
Is there a burglar in your house?
Like, not to fear, I've had smoke alarms go off before, and I was like, "I guess dinner's done." Right? Like, just being kind of like they're like, "Hey, should you check on that?" No. No, they'll come and find me. If the house is really burning down, somebody will come get me.
Dog will come.
Yeah. My dog barks, and I will joke about, like, "Oh, there's a special guest with us
Yeah,
today." Because I think that there needs to be this moment where I'm not an ex well, so, as I say, I'm not an expert. Yes, did I go to school for a very, very long time? Yes. Do I know a lot of things? Have I read a lot of things? Sure, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not an expert on your life, but I'm along
yeah,
for the journey, right? And
yeah,
I am curious about you, right? And so I'm not coming as like a stuffy person to be like, let's what's wrong with you?" Right?
yeah, I think that's what people are afraid of when it comes to therapy. It's like this hierarchy of, like, the person knows everything about me. I don't want them to know, like, everything about me, and then just me, like, I'm just, like, this just broken person, and it's like, that's not what therapy is. It's just really essentially 2 humans gathering the skills to navigate the complexities of life.
Mhm.
And I think people forget that their therapist is also a human. So your therapist has like random things going on. They're just part of just part of along for the ride.
Absolutely, right? Like, your therapist also has a burdener wall right now. What are we gonna do about it, right? Like, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's why when it comes to editing for Men's Couch, I try not to do too much of it because I want to leave a lot of just random little parts
Mhm.
in it because it's just part of it's also it's also really funny to me, and I think it's hopefully for the listeners it just shows them that I'm human, and when you're making content you really, especially now when it comes to social media, what I try to do is to make content that's highly relatable and
Mhm.
not present myself as accomplished or in any way, just more of I try to tell people hey, this is what's going on with me in regard to my humanity. And I think that's what people are, Gen Z especially, is really craving. From what I see, is really craving that. So
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, if we boil everything down to you and I are just somebody's kids out here just trying to figure things out, it takes the seriousness away a little bit and go,
yeah,
"Hey, you have some flexibility in that. Like, what do you wanna do with your life?" And I mean, that gets way into the meaning of life and some of the deeper existential stuff, but,
yeah,
listen, big fan of therapy, and I'm a big fan of therapy, not just because I'm a therapist, right? And I don't even say that we'll have job security. AI cannot I mean, it might try, but I don't think it's gonna take away
no,
there's
no,
some sense to therapy that I don't necessarily think that chat can figure out yet. So I think there's job security in that, but there's also job security in it is hard to be a human, and sometimes we are not the best humans, right? Either we're not
yeah,
parents or we get involved in things, we get out of control on things when we talk about substances in those, right? And what's cool about therapy is its ability to just especially with what we talk about today, hey, let's dive into who you are, right? And figure out if this can be healthier, if we can navigate some of this, right? So it's also not awkward, like we've talked about. I mean, it is
yeah,
intimidating at times, but people talk to me about all kinds of things. Anything that is related to humans. I've talked about quite literally everything from sexual fantasies with people to why they don't like their mother in law's cream cheese icing on cinnamon and I'm like, "Okay." And it's because she licks the bowl. I get it. Okay, yeah, and it's Thanksgiving. You can't be doing
first
all
of all,
that when you're inviting
cream
people
cheese
over.
icing on cinnamon rolls, no, 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 we're not. No, that's where that's no. But yeah, I think I lost my train of thought. But it's just that's what people are really looking for, and that's what we crave. That we crave communities that are like that. We want to be surrounded by people who are also okay with our humanity, because I feel a lot of currently, I feel like we live in a quite a divided culture in terms of things like sociological, um, and politically speaking, but I think we emphasize those differences so much to a heavy degree that we forget our common humanity, and I think that's why people are a little bit more lonely than they wanna be.
Mhm.
So I think that's where that can come into play.
Absolutely. And that goes into all the things we talked about earlier, from how you were raised to connect to people. Were you taught that differences are okay, or were you taught that differences should, hey, they're poor over there, don't go over their house, right?
Yeah.
And I really don't want to pick on anybody's families because that's not it's not a place of judgment, right? But how we're raised really structures a lot of our expectations of the world around us, right? And you can see it as I don't know how many folks you've talked to, but transplants to the Pittsburgh area who've come from Appalachia in general, right? Jokingly, and I don't think I've said it here before. I might have said it in class, but Pittsburgh is the Paris of Appalachia, right?
I saw an article about that. I was like, "What does that mean?"
Are we talking about, right?
What
No,
does that mean?
everyone flees to Pittsburgh. Like in Appalachia, it's a dream. Like one day I'm gonna move to the city and it's okay. So, but I'm one of those transplants, right? And a couple of my friends are also actually, everyone that lives in my row of housing, right, on my
Confess and drive.
all of us are Appalachian transplants. Yes,
You
I
know,
love.
come to think of that, I think a lot of people, I don't know if like just recently are starting to like fall in love with Pittsburgh. I'm like, well, I've lived here my whole life. And then I have Angie who's from Utah. She's like, I don't want to leave PA. I was like, oh, is it that good? Which I love Pittsburgh. Like personally, I love Pittsburgh, but like it's good to see people that are outside of the area kind of fall in love with like the community and what it has to offer. So
So like Pittsburgh. I've lived here for a very long time, and we joke amongst like my people. I really love Baltimore. So if I could live anywhere, it's Baltimore. And I just the city's cool, like everything. Like I love Baltimore. Pittsburgh is the next best thing to Baltimore, as I have found. And it's cheaper. And so there is some of that that comes into like the cost of living here is a little bit better. But it is a cultural shift to come here when you're a transplant because Pittsburghers, this is a very small city.
yeah.
It's 600,000 people and probably close to like 1.3 million in Allegheny County. So the county itself, huge, right? One of the biggest counties in America. City itself, small, right? And so everybody
Yeah.
knows each other. The city kids all know each
Yeah.
other. Like and so it can be difficult to be a part of the culture here at times.
Oh, I don't want to cut you off, but like that's the reason why I don't work at Oakmont Bakery is because like so many Penn Hills people work there, and it's like I don't want to like it's just no.
There are times think about this. I never have the experience I mean, I do now because I've lived here for forever, but I don't have that experience of going into the Dollar General and seeing somebody that I grew up
It's like
with, right?
it's
No.
you're gonna yeah. It's just you can't escape it.
To avoid anyone. I don't have to do "Oh, I didn't see you in the aisle from 5th grade," right? Adjusting to culture and trying to connect with people can be difficult here. And it is a cultural thing. Everybody has known each other for a long time. And
Yeah.
if you're not a drinker or not a sports fan, it can be difficult to adjust to the culture here because drinking is a part of literally everything and sports are a part of things. So if you come into the mix and you're like, I'm not a sports fan. Oh, and I also don't drink. People are like, right, you don't do anything. And it's like they're okay, right? There's a lot
There's
more.
a lot more to do.
There's a lot more. But you could see how that might have people thinking like, "What's wrong with me that I can't connect to people?" And it's like,
Right.
you just didn't learn the culture yet. Like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to learn how you connect to all of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think this is a very awesome episode. I think we're at an hour and a half. We just hit the
Man,
an hour and a half mark. So I don't know, like
we should probably wrap it, right? Yeah. We should probably end it, yeah.
yeah, we can end it. But I think our next topic has definitely needs to be, I think, like attachment, because I think that's very interesting.
Okay.
So yeah.
Can we show people the videos of what attachment theory came from? It's on YouTube.
Like
Would we be able to bring it up, do you think?
here,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm not like that. Like I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know if we could.
You know what? We'll include some slides with the next one. How's that?
Okay.
Well, it has
Because
been
I don't
lovely.
know if you can,
Thank
like, I
you
don't
so
know if I can even share my screen. I haven't. Maybe I can. There's all these buttons. I just like click like record, and I'm like,
we might be able to play around with this. I think people
yeah,
need to see the mom just running out of the room. She doesn't run out of the room, but the baby like huffing it towards her and she she closes the door. I think it's a very heartbreaking moment,
yeah,
but you get to see attachment, the science behind it there.
yeah.
But yeah, no, next time I love it. I would love to be back. I think that our dialogue is good.
I need to have Angie on. She really wants to be on, like, with when you're on. So yeah, but yeah, this is very awesome. Again, thank you for being on Men's Couch. Again, a show about men's mental health and community. I hope to grow our connection so that we could use it for the podcast and like other things. For me being a rising therapist.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Cool. I love being on the show, like talking about it. Therapy, I could talk about all day, an hour and a half later, right? If anybody has any interest in being a part of Healing Can Be Fun, the strawberrycollective.org has information on all of that. That is my nonprofit. And if anybody's interested in therapy in the humanistic realm, minttherapy.com, that's how they can find me. Other than that, take some of my classes, right? And we can rock and roll in those
And
spaces.
rock and roll at
We
6
can be a
p.m.
bunch of Thundercats in those spaces,
At
right?
6 p.m. Yeah. They're
Yeah.
really fun. They're really fun.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. So thanks again, and
absolutely.
I will, see you soon.
All right. See ya.